do the Booktube Newbie Tag because I thought, why not? So let's just get started. Question 1. Why did you start this channel? I started this channel at the suggestion of one of my very best friends, Shannon, who has a booktube channel. Her name is Bookerly out there. She really encouraged me to start it because I read a lot, I talk about my books with her a lot. She's one of my only real life friends that reads a ton that I can talk to about, but we don't necessarily have the same interests and style in reading, so this might be a good way to talk to other people who like to read all the same books that I like to read. Question 2. What are some fun things that you can bring to Booktube or to your channel? I'm gonna skip this one because I don't really know. Question 3. What are you most excited about for this channel? I think mostly I'm just excited to see what other people have to say about a lot of the books that I like to read. I don't really know a lot of people in real life that like to read, so I think just being involved in a community that likes to do that is just gonna be a lot of fun. Question 4. Why do you love reading? Okay, so I feel like there's 2 answers to this, maybe there's 3 answers to this. So the obvious one is that reading has an escapism quality to it. You can kind of forget about everything that's going on in your life for a while when you pick up a book because there's a whole nother life happening in that book. It's the same reason that I like working out. Working out and reading are my 2 forms of escape. So, that's something that I like to do. A second reason that I really like reading is because I think that it can teach you a lot about other people. I think it can teach you a lot about empathy and compassion and kindness, and can give you a glimpse into the lives of other people and things that they may be experiencing. Whether you're reading fiction or nonfiction, it doesn't really matter. I feel like reading just opens you up to a lot of different experiences and a lot of different possibilities that you would not otherwise have the opportunity to see or be a little piece of in your life. And the third reason that I really like reading is something to do with, I'm gonna mess this up. I think it's George R.R. Martin. I think he's the one who had that quote out there a couple years ago, something about a reader lives 1,000 lives. I really like that. I really take to that quote. I actually have a book where I keep track of everything that I read because I want to one day get to 1,000 lives in reading, which would be 1,000 books that I have read, so 1,000 other experiences that I can say that I had that added to the one life that I'm actually living right now. I decided that I was going to start keeping track of books that I had read, and I wasn't going to go any earlier than 11th or 12th grade. I had a couple books in from there that I really enjoyed that I included in here. And then I didn't read quite so much whenever I was in college because I was really busy. I graduated college early. I did a double major. So a lot of this is going to be books that I was reading during graduate school and then afterwards, which would be right now. So this is something that I work on, and then every time I read a book, I put the book in here and I put the author in here, and I'm going to see how long it takes me to get to 1,000. Question 5, what book or series got you into reading? So there's actually 2 books and series that I'm going to talk about here. The first one is probably pretty obvious. Harry Potter, so I just have the first Harry Potter here, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I first read this book when I was in, oh my god, 3rd grade. 3rd grade is whenever I read this book. And it's actually funny because my parents had bought the first, I think, 2 or 3 books at that time and just had them in a closet for me, and my parents are not readers. My mom has not read a book since high school. My dad maybe reads 1 or 2 books a year, if that, so it was kind of odd that they had bought some books for me. I was their oldest child, and so this was one of the books that I had. And I started reading it in 3rd grade, and I was hooked every single time that another one of these books came out. I begged my mom to take me. I begged her to take me to. like a bookstore or an event or, you know, Giant Eagle, like literally wherever, you know, this book was going to come out first, the next one in the series. I was dying to pick it up, and I just have really fond memories of reading Harry Potter, the whole entire series, reading most of those books within the span of a few days and just absolutely devouring them. The other series that I want to put in here that I really like to read, that really got me into reading, is going to be anything written by Ellen Hopkins. She is one of my all-time favorite authors. Impulse was the first book of hers that I actually read. I read it when I was in the, I want to say 9th grade, and before then I had really just read a lot of like children's-based books, like middle grade type books. I read a lot, but I wasn't really reading anything of like a lot of substance to it, and this book was a hard hitter for substance. I think like the thing in Barnes & Noble, like there's actually like part of a shelf there that's just Ellen Hopkins, and it says Tough Stuff by Ellen Hopkins. So I thought that was funny. Her books are books that are written in verse, so each of the pages, they look different. There's not a lot of words on the pages, you know, but they're all sort of set up in that style. That's why they look so thick. Just kind of yellow because it's really old. I need to get a new copy of this. But I fell in love with this author. I fell in love with this book when I read it, and it really like rejuvenated my reading for me. And I credit this series with like jump starting me into like the amount of books that I read as an adult and as a young adult. I've read every single book that Ellen Hopkins has published, and I follow her on Twitter, and I just anxiously await anytime she says she's writing a new book so that I can read it. Question 6 is, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? Well, I don't really know a lot of booktubers. My favorite booktuber is obviously Shannon, one of my best friends, and since I see her like 4 or 5 days a week because we work together, I can ask her any question that I want. Question 7 is, what challenges to starting a channel do you think will be the hardest to overcome? So for me, that's just going to be 2 things: anxiety in front of the camera, actually talking to people. This is totally new for me. I'm like your classic bookworm reading introvert, and putting myself there on the internet is very scary for me. The other thing that I think is going to be a challenge is just like finding time to do this and being consistent with doing this, and actually learning how to produce and edit videos, because I have absolutely no idea how to do that. I've never done it before, so I'm literally learning this as I go. Question 8 is, when did you start reading? And I actually answered this earlier. I would say that I really started reading in the 3rd grade whenever I picked up my first Harry Potter book. Question 9 is, where do you read? Okay, so there's a couple places that I read. I really like to read in my apartment, either on my bed, I have a lamp by my bed, or on my couch. I really like to read outdoors, like at the park, if I go to the park. I like to read when I go out to dinner. Like sometimes I'll just sit at a diner and I'll just bring a book and be there for like an hour or 2 and have something light to eat while I read. I also like to read a lot at work. I'm very fortunate that I have an office at work, and whenever I don't have patients to see, I like work in a place that does like walk-in appointments. We don't have anything scheduled, so when I don't have anybody to see, I can read there. I also like to read anywhere near a window because I really like to read when it's raining. Question 10 is, what kind of books do you like to read? So the short and the long answer is, I like to read YA. I'd probably be willing to pick up anything that was classified under YA. I am a true YA reader. Most of the books that I would put in like my wrap up or what I read in a month, most of them, if not all of them, are going to be YA books. Specifically, I like to read contemporary, I like to read fantasy sometimes, I like to read books about mental health and mental illness. I'm very interested in that. Occasionally, I'll read like a classic. I don't read a lot of classics. I also really like to read poetry and verse and anything kind of from that section. I think that's kind of it. I mean, I'm not like super picky when it comes to reading. I'm not super like specific. If somebody recommends a book to me, I'm probably going to give it a try. I'm probably going to read it. If something is from like an author that I've heard of or heard good things about, I'm probably going to read that. I'm really willing to read just about anything. Okay guys, so that's it for the Booktube Newbie Tag. I don't know if it was all that interesting or if it was all that helpful to you, but I did it. Yay. And if you are watching this, it means that you possibly found and watched my first video and weren't completely put off by it, so thanks for coming back. Not sure if I'll put anything else up before I put up my August wrap up, but if not, I will see you then. Bye.